I'm a scientist who likes to get kids all excited about science. And then you'll have, Debbie, are you there? Well, Debbie
Yeah,
Davidson.
I'm here.
So introduce yourself, Debbie.
Hi, everybody. I am Debbie. I'm in North Carolina, and I am a wildlife biologist and a forester.
And a forester is somebody who studies what? What's a forest? Trees. So she studies trees. I'm a different type of scientist. I study rocks. And rocks, that kind of scientist would be a geologist. So we're just about to start. Hopefully, as people come in, they can add. Um, and if you have questions at the end because you came in late, that would be okay. But we'll talk about 50 minutes and show you different activities that you can do at home. We do have materials online that you can print out and actually make yourself. So without further ado, should be a second graders, and we're going to do biodiversity at Tule Ponds. Bio meaning biology, diversity meaning many. And Tule Ponds is a place, a special place here in Fremont that is a haven for native plants and native animals. That means animals that lived here, 300-400 years ago. Now, first of all, I want to make sure you understand there is a lot of life. It's not just animals. There are, and if you look at this tree of life, you'll see that you see the big numbers 1, 2, and 3. These are little organisms. Now, we have to have a lot of little organisms in order to have the big organisms live. But we're not going to talk too much about that because we'd need a microscope and you'd have to kind of understand the bigger ones first. Now, if you notice that we have plant A that we're going to talk about because the plants help explain why the animals come here. Now, for instance, you see the monarchs, caterpillars growing along here in front of you, like over in here. These caterpillars are here because we have one plant called milkweed, and that attracts the monarchs. And so we're going to learn that if you want to get different animals to come together, you have to understand all the things that they eat. So let's look at Tule Ponds and let's kind of understand it a little bit more. So let's go. Let's fly over Tule Ponds. So I want to make you believe you're up and looking down. You just got off the Fremont BART station and you got your wings flying, and you see a big pond called Tyson's Lagoon. It's in this Tyson's Lagoon that most of our animals come for. Everybody, all organisms need water. And so they can't go to a cooler or they can't buy a bottle of water and drink. They have to depend on nature. And as humans came into this area, unfortunately, they took a lot of their water away. Now, this is a part of Tule Ponds. Now, if you notice, there's some big reeds or these big plants that are in the water coming up. Guess what those are called? Those are called tules. Now, tules are very important for organisms because, as we'll see later on, there's lots of little organisms around the area, and you'll see like little baby fish like to shelter there. So this is a perfect place. Now, also here at Tule Ponds, we have lots and lots of birds. Not only because we have water, but because we have big trees, and birds like trees. Little birds like to have singing little perches, and some of the bigger ones like the tules so they can make their nest on it. So this is a perfect place for lots of animals. Now let's take a look. Now let's say we're still flying up high, and this is a picture of Tyson's Lagoon. You can see that funny little dock in the front there. That's how a lot of our animals hang out there for a while. But as you can see, there's bigger trees and there's smaller shrubs. All of these trees work together to make sure that we have lots and lots of animals. Now, I know we were flying, but let's look at all of this habitat. So where, if you can notice that where you have four, number four, you have lakes and ponds. And we have lots of these in order to make an area for these different types of animals. Some animals like a little bit of water, some like moisture, some just like a fish can't live out of water. So we have all of these areas, including full sun. So some animals, like butterflies like full sun, will have areas that they only like. So we have something called the butterfly meadow that we'll go visit in a little bit. So there's all these cool places to make the diversity of all the animals different. Now, let's think of the animals at Tule Ponds. Now, remember, there was lots of little ones. Now, animals are organisms with a backbone. Does everybody know what that is? Are you an animal? Yes. Do you have a backbone? If you feel in the back of your just feel your back there. That makes you stand up straight. Now, these animals are considered the bigger animals, and it's the ones with backbones. And those are fish. And where do they live? They live in the blue area. Birds can be found in the water because they have to eat a lot of times. Some of them like to swim. Others don't like to get in the water at all. So we have lots of different types of birds because we have trees, we have water, and we have shrubs. And then we have other things called amphibians. Now, what's an example of an amphibian? Think. They croak. Ribbit, ribbit. What's that? A frog. We have lots of those because they live in the water and they have babies in the water. And so we're going to see that they like Tule Ponds too. We also have reptiles here. Now, what's a reptile? A reptile. A snake is a reptile. Does that have a backbone? Yes. Now remember, a worm is not a snake or a reptile, only those that have a backbone. So you would have like a worm is an animal without a backbone. And we have lots of those here at Tule Ponds, which we'll explore. Now we also have mammals that live here. Mammals are things like opossums, raccoons, squirrels, and we have lots of cats here too. And we find lots of a different variety of these type of mammals. Now, and everything, animals without backbones are everywhere. Some of them are in the water, in the soil, on the air, on the trees, in the trees. And so we have lots and lots of animals. Like, for instance, our birds, we have counted 120 different types of birds visit Tule Ponds every year. That's a lot. Okay, now please remember all animals require water. And let's see what Tule Ponds have. Notice when it rains, we get lots of water, but we also have an area here that has an underground spring. So that means water comes up from the bottom, and that's why we have water all year round, which is why we have so many animals here. Now also we have a thing called a seasonal wetland. Sometimes it's wet, and during the drought area it's dry. Now, did you hear all those sounds? Now, you couldn't see the animals, but are they there? Yes. We have lots of, when you're walking around Tule Ponds, you can hear lots of little birds. One was a tern, the one that was going ee, 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 and one was a goose making its kind of cooing sound. So, and you could see in the background, there's the BART station. We're right near the Fremont BART station. So a lot of people don't know we're here, but the animals do. Now, this is the seasonal wetland right now. Because we're in drought, we haven't had much rain yet. And look at what happened. So that same picture before with all the noise and the animals was when it was wet. This is when it's not.
What is that on the dirt? Kind of moving away from us. Doesn't want to be bothered. This is a female turtle, and it's trying to lay some eggs. Don't want to get too close, or else it will just hide away. But this is how they look for areas to lay their eggs. Turtles are kind of cool that they make false nests, so it's supposedly driving people crazy. Either that or they just haven't found the right spot.
So this is what we call a western pond turtle. And these have been around here for a long, long time. So this is the type of animal that you would find when it's a little dry. And so, but when it's wet, they would be just swimming. Now, guys, I just want to remind you, don't raise your hands yet. We're going to let you talk at the end. We'll have 10
Okay.
minutes. So let's take a look at this habitat here.
At Tule Ponds, we plant a variety of different plants, from milkweed to mallows, to help bring back certain insects. So this is an area where children maintain, mainly teenagers, and it allows the native animals to come back.
So if you look at the diversity of animals that we have here is because of the diversity of plants. And so you see there's all different kinds of plants and they provide food for different types of animals. Now, let's take a look at our butterfly meadow. This is where we put special plants to attract different types of butterflies. Now, remember, each butterfly has its own plant that it likes. That's called a host plant. Just like the in front of you are different is a milkweed that only the monarchs will eat, but they will eat nectar when it becomes a butterfly. So that's why we have lots of flowers so they can get butterflies. But when they're a caterpillar, they must be on its own plant. And so if you want that animal to come in, you have to plant them. So let's take a look at our butterfly meadow. And notice I have the word marsh mallow.
This is looking at the butterfly meadow, which is about an acre of different types of plants. The one we're walking toward is a marsh mallow. The early Native Americans would eat the root, they would roast it, and would have the flavor of today's marsh mallow. Marsh meaning wet, and mallow is the type of plant. The painted lady loves this plant.
Who's a painted lady? Well, it's a butterfly that looks kind of like a monarch. A lot of times people think it's monarchs, but they only eat this marsh mallow. It's a plant that grows in the marsh, meaning wet, and mallow is the type of plant. The early Native Americans would roast the roots and eat it as a treat. That's where we get our flavor of a marshmallow. Now let's take a look at these pictures here. If you look at the picture on the left, that's a picture of lots of painted ladies. They come and visit us only for maybe every few years they come here from the Mojave Desert in Southern California. And they love to come here because we have lots of nectar and we have lots of marshmallow. And if you notice, they have, we're going to go through the different cycles of an egg, a larval or a caterpillar, a pupa or a chrysalis, and then the adult butterfly. Now, if you notice in the upper right-hand picture, those are little bitty eggs. Each one of those is an egg of a painted lady. So I'm going to read you a story about the painted lady, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Now, you got to remember, does butterflies have a backbone? No, they are animals without backbones.
The Painted Lady, species name Vanessa Cardudi, by Joyce Bluford, animated by Doris Rea and Hagos Tavolti. Vanessa found a lilac chrysalis, the pupa stage a caterpillar made, attached to a mallow plant, hanging under a leaf for shade. A few days before, the caterpillar, dark brown, spiny with light stripes, kept eating and shedding its skin, looking like different types. The caterpillar knew, after 3 weeks or so, chemicals in its body will signal it's time to go. Hanging motionless, with fits of a wig and a wag, the caterpillar was changing in its little sleeping bag. Weeks before, a female painted lady laid her little green eggs. A caterpillar emerged in a week, crawling on its many legs. A month before they moved to the north, the butterflies took flight. They migrated from the south in spring. It was a miraculous sight. Vanessa was wise and let the chrysalis be. As the lilac turned reddish brown, the wing colors you could now see. The chrysalis began to peel and emerged a butterfly. The blood from its abdomen pumped the wings to fly. The painted lady was beautiful, thought Vanessa to herself. The lady could fly and even land on a shelf. The lady looked for flowers so its proboscis could suck up food. When night arrives, they keep warm in a brood. Vanessa witnessed metamorphosis and was proud that she can see. She now knew the secrets of how a butterfly came to be. So this is the end of the little poem, and this shows the life cycle of the painted lady. It goes from egg to caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly, and it continues on and on. The end.
Okay, so we have, like I said here at Tule Ponds, a diversity of different butterflies, and that's because we have a diversity of different types of plants. Now, if you look here, these are the types of milkweed that the monarch butterfly likes, the ones that we're showing you up here. These are your monarch caterpillars, and they eat all day long, and that's all they will eat. Now, why it's called milkweed, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you could see if you cut off a leaf, a milky substance come out. It's not milk. What it does is it makes the caterpillar not very tasty.
This is the narrow leaf milkweed, and you can see the petals are pointing up and down, allowing for maximum use by the beetles and any other animal that would be feeding on the pollen or the nectar.
Yeah, so a lot of these they also provide nectars for other butterflies. Now this is another one. Look at this one. It looks like a big ornament.
This is a showy milkweed, and you can see the blossoms are 5 petal, kind of like on a snowball. Notice that it is full of nectar, so you have lots of bumblebees and flies and milkweed beetle on the area.
So not only are they good for the monarch butterfly, but other animals enjoy the nectar and need it to have so many animals here at Tule Ponds. Now, let's take a look at the monarch a little closer. Do you know there is boy and girl butterflies? Let's see if we can tell the difference. The boy has dots and the girls do not. Let's take a look.
This is a male monarch. You can see that it has these dart dots. You can see they have a little relief to them. Those are where they have pheromones to attract the female. So this is a male.
So that's kind of like a boy perfume for a monarch. The girls can smell them and then they'll get married. So we have this all these wonderful animals here. Now remember, this is an animal without a backbone. Now, let's take a look at the eggs. Now, I can't show you the eggs here, but if you notice, the one on the right, the left is an egg. The one on the right is what the caterpillars look at. If you can see, they are what colors, guys? They are yellow. Give me another color. White. Another color. Black. And they keep repeating themselves. Now, remember, this is only a phase of the caterpillar, of the monarch. Now let's take this is going to be coming out. How does it come up? Well, let me show you this again here. This is right here. You can see that is a chrysalis. Now it hangs, the butterfly makes its little chrysalis and hangs on something, and then by gravity it comes out. So we're going to take a look what it looks like. Notice what comes out first. What's coming out there? You see the dots of the coloration of a monarch. What's going to come out first, guys? You think it's stomach or its head? Oh, it's just plopping out there. Oh, gravity is pulling it down, and this is a really hard time. Look at its wings are coming out, and gravity is pulling it down. Ah, its head comes out first. You can see the antennae, and you can see the proboscis, and you can see the stomach now is coming out. That stomach is full of blood, and what happens is the blood needs to, by gravity, goes out to the wings, and then after 24 hours, they can then fly. These are the ones that we have here, and that's why we save them here. We actually grow them in the classroom, and you could see the stomach, and then you could see how the butterfly on the right has longer wings. That's because the blood is coming out. And then we bring them inside not only so people can see it, but also to protect them. You got to remember, when they're outside, if it's rainy or something tries to eat it and it falls down, it will kill the butterfly. So it's always, so this way we are watching, it's educational, but we're also helping the monarchs. Now, we have an activity for you guys to do, and this is online, and you can, let's see what to do. You're going to cut them out, you're going to color it, you're going to put a little brad in the middle, put it over, and what do you think it's going to show you? It's going to show you the life cycle of the monarchs. So this way you can remember it and then understand that a lot of animals without a backbone go through these different stages. Very, very important. Okay, now what else do we have here? Well, we have things called dragonflies. Now, they also have different stages. Dragonflies are one of the fastest insects known. They go about 60 miles per hour. Let's take a look when they're, can you see it? It went so fast. Oh, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes, goes around. Let's see if you can see it again. This baby goes 60 miles per hour. That is a fast insect. Now let's look at it. Look at the left-hand side there. That's called a nymph. They also go through what is called metamorphosis, which is these changing. And in the water, it's unlike the The butterflies, they're all on land, but a dragonfly spends most of its time in the water, and then when it comes up, it's a land. So boy, these animals are all crazy. They do many, many weird things. Now look at this guy here. Can you see? Aha, that's the dragonfly. She's laying her eggs. This is called a blue skimmer, and she's laying her eggs in the water. So go get that, all these organisms. And that's what biologists do, especially the kind like Debbie. Debbie's a wildlife biologist. She can studies how these animals work and how they, what their different stages are. Okay, now let's see if you can figure out what this is.
Along the creeks, you can encounter many organisms. Let's look closer. This crayfish is afraid we might attack, so it's getting in a defense position.
This is called a crayfish. Now, what in the world is this? Well, it's not an animal with a backbone, but it's one with a shell. It grows in a shell. It almost looks like a baby crab or a baby lobster, and it is related to them. It's an arthropod, so it belongs in the big group that also includes like insects and shrimps. And so this is our crayfish here. Now, what other things do we have here? We have lots of other little critters. Now, you might have to look close at this, but look at them.
Spiders, worms, and ants all over the place doing their job.
Doing their job. What are they doing? Well, they are making the soil all nice and happy with nutrients. And as they're breaking it apart, they're putting air in it. And then the plants will grow on it. You can't just grow a plant without good soil. And these little critters help the diversity of all the plants that we have here. So everything is important in making a good habitat. Now, we're going to go over these animals again because we're going to look at the animals here, the big animals with the backbones. Those are called vertebrates. I want to go over these again so you remember which ones they are. There's fish. They live in the water. They are cold-blooded. What does that mean? Well, your temperature, you know, like we take your temperature, that's because humans are warm-blooded. We have one temperature, but many organisms, many of them do not. They're cold-blooded. That's how they can live when it gets colder. Their blood goes cold with it and they can survive. The fish breathe with their gills. Unlike us, we have we use our nose and mouth to get in air. They lay their eggs in water and their babies are on their own. So a fish doesn't take care of baby fish. And they can live in fresh water and salt water. Now our fish here are freshwater fish. We are not in the ocean. The ocean would be in the Pacific Ocean or the San Francisco Bay. The next one we're going to look at is amphibians. They live near moist areas and they need water to lay their eggs. They are freshwater only, and they live in and they are cold-blooded. That means their temperature changes. Reptiles live, some of them live in water and land, and they are cold-blooded. Now, the other two groups, the birds and the mammals, those are warm-blooded, and they live mainly on land. The birds have eggs. We have our babies live birth. We have milk. Birds do not. Birds usually take care of their babies at the beginning, but not in the end. So they all have different characteristics. So let's take a look at these animals at Tule Ponds. Ah, what is this guy? This is a raccoon. Now we have raccoons that come out at night. They are nocturnal, meaning that they come only out at night. We have possums. They're also nocturnal. We have squirrels that come during the day, and we have cats that are here all day and night. He kind of got up early and then realized, oh, I need to go back to bed. So going back to bed. Okay, now let's take a look at this guy. Now, why would we have a lot of squirrels here? Because squirrels like nuts, and we have the native black walnut, which is the tree he's in. Notice he's breaking the nut and he'll have a nice dinner. Now, squirrels also bury their nuts that sometimes become trees. So they help the environment by planting. So they're a native planter. Now, we also have a lot of ducks. And matter of fact, we have so many ducks here that we've gotten to learn to love some of them. And so we feed them in the morning. And remember, they are warm-blooded. They do have a backbone. And the difference between them and mammals is we have fur and hair, and they have feathers. So let's take a look at these guys. We're feeding them. Now, if you notice, some of them have if you take a look at this guy here, a mallard duck, some of them have green heads and some of them do not. Some of them are just brown. The ones with the green heads are the boy, and the ones that are just brown and white are the girl. So you could always tell the difference. Now, sometimes we get 200 to 300 birds here, and we sometimes have people bring their children just to see the ducks. Now, we also have ducks are smaller, and the bigger are our Canada geese. Now, let's take a look at some of these, and notice there's little babies here. We have baby chicks here.
Gimpy is the resident goose. He's an African goose that came about 5 years ago. He cannot fly. And every year he always picks a male and a female, and their chicks, and he watches over them like a nanny. So this year, these are the lucky couple.
And if you could see the little baby chicks, and Gimpy has been here for almost 8 years now. And Gimpy does this every year, takes care of some Canada geese. Now, this is odd. Usually one group of organisms stay to themselves, but the Gimpy is a domesticated gray log, and they actually are bred to be more friendlier. And so it's probably lonely too because it doesn't have its own babies. So it adopts the babies and he takes care of them really well. So there is our Gimpy guy. Now, what do we have here? Now that's actually a young woodpecker. A real woodpecker would be pecking because it's trying to get food. This little juvenile or teenager is kind of using the sandbar willow to figure out how to do it. So we have lots of training stations here at Tule Ponds. Now, gotta look quick, guys. Now, those were fish. Those were babies, and if you notice, the green stuff on the left were tules. And if you notice, if you're a bird, they're easy to see, and you would eat them real quick. And so the tules act as a shelter and a safety for these fish. So you'll always find lots of little schools of fish near tules. Now, let's take a look at some of the amphibians at Tule Ponds. And this will include the following: the Pacific chorus frog, bullfrogs, and yellow-legged frog. The one on the right there is yellow-legged, and it's called yellow-legged because it's kind of yellow. We don't have as many of them, but they're still here occasionally. Now we also have the really little tree frog. Can you see it in the picture? Let's show this video. Notice it has web feet, or not web feet, but little suctions on the ends of its feet. This helps it to climb a tree. And sometimes you can go on some of the taller trees and there they are, these little guys. They come out all at once and they jump all over the place. If you're lucky enough to be here when they come out, you can actually catch them really easy. Now, we also have the American bullfrog. Let's look at this guy.
Oh my.
Now, frogs are important because everybody eats them. So if you have a lot of frog, that means you're going to have a lot of birds. And you call that the food chain. So here at Tule Ponds, we have a very good food chain where one eats the other and takes care of it. And then the whole area is one big food web where everybody is taking care of everybody else. Now, I would like to read a story about
Frog Tales by Michael Daugherty, animated by Doris Rea and Hagos Tavalti. Notice in this picture that there are one species of frogs with yellow eyes and one species of frogs with blue eyes. Amphibian's Poem. A male green frog sings his song. He sings it loud, he sings it long. Notice what that means is that only the boy frog or the male sings and the girl listens. He calls from his pond to attract a mate. He wants to have a special date. So he's looking for a girlfriend. The females choose whoever they like. Compared to her, he's a little tyke. The female frog is much larger than the male or boy frog. The amplexus is the long hug she'll get. The egg she deposits must stay wet. So frogs have this funny way of reproducing, which no other group of organisms do this. The male squeezes the egg. Unlike a chicken that just lays an egg, the male frog needs to squeeze them out of her. In about a week, tadpoles hatch, thousands of them in a single batch. If you notice that the little frogs are in the eggs, they must be in water. Metamorphosis is an amazing change as tadpoles grow into things so strange. So they start from the egg and then they come out, they form these gills, and then they almost look like a fish. And they actually act like a fish. They get their dissolved oxygen from the water. Legs appear as their tail go away. New things will grow day by day. So if you notice that their tail gets smaller, their hind legs come out first, then their front legs. Gills go away as lungs breathe air. They can stay out of water if they dare. So now their lungs have developed where they now can breathe, but they are not like humans that breathe out of their mouth. They need to breathe from their skin. In about 2 years, they are fully grown to look for a pond they can call their own. So this is a green frog. Every frog has a different life cycle. So it takes 2 years for a green frog to come out of the water and to be a fully grown adult frog. The end. I hope you like my poem. Now I would like to share some information from my new book. And what's her book? The cookbook. Hey, isn't that a cookbook? Who cares about that? Notice the blue-eyed frog looks pretty bored. Remember when your teeth formed when you were about a month old? I gave you a homework assignment to memorize a list of things you can eat. Does anybody remember what tadpoles eat? Now first, frogs do have teeth. They're very small and they're in the back, but they do choose their food. Now let's see what tadpoles eat. Remember, they're in the water. Algae, which is little green plants, and zooplankton, so little organisms that are in the water. That blue-eyed frog looks pretty bored. What do frogs eat? Zooplankton, insects. So they eat the same except they don't eat, but they added insects to their diet. That's it. Can we go home now? And bad little frogs, class dismissed. Notice that amphibian actually ate the bored little blue-eyed frog. And that's because that is what happens in nature. The end, as the green fog hops away.
Now, we do not have green frogs here in California. This is an East Coast. The ones that we have here are the bullfrog. That takes up to 3 years for it to go from tadpole to frog. And they can live for a long time, up to 10, 12 years. The little baby peeper frog that we have, on the other hand, can go through metamorphism within 6 months. And so it becomes a frog pretty quick. That's why we have so many of them at the beginning of springtime. So let's continue on our story. So frogs are an indicator of a healthy food web. Let's take a look at who eats them. So you're going to have to look close here.
Let's take a look at who feeds on tadpoles. This is a blue heron, and if you notice, he's perfectly quiet as he will find a prey and then pick it up with its beak.
And you can see the tules are in the back. The amphibians also hide behind tules, but birds are a little bit smarter than amphibians. And so they know to wait. When it comes out, it will go quick. Now, if you notice, it has a long, long neck, and it has a bone in here that it can go like that real quick and almost stab its prey and then eat it whole. Okay, let's go frog hunting. Now you got to remember, frogs are skitterish. If they think they see something, they will jump away. That's why a lot of kids have never caught a frog, because you can hear them sometimes. So let's listen and let's see if you could have caught one of these frogs.
Let's see if we can find any frogs in this area. Notice right after the rains, oops, I just heard something jump. That little peeper sound, that is a frog. Catching them on film is not the easiest thing in the world. So let's see. We go closer. There is a whole bunch of frogs in here. See bullfrog? That was a big one. That was about a 2-pounder.
So if you notice, you have to be pretty quiet and you have to look around because there's all these animals, but you have to use your eyes and be quiet, and you can see nature in action. Okay, now let's take a look at the reptiles at Tule Ponds. We've already seen the western pond turtle, but let's take a look at some of the other ones that are here and see if you can describe them. Now remember, these are vertebrates. They have a backbone, and yes, on a turtle, That is part of the backbone, is the shell. Can't take it out. Now let's see if you can find the western pond turtle here. Kind of looks like the mud guys, huh? So again, you have to look for these animals that are here. And look at, remember on the other one, I said they were going to lay eggs. Well, I caught one laying her eggs in the weirdest place.
Walking down the steps here at Tule Ponds, and look what I found. A turtle, female turtle, laying her eggs on the top of the stairs. Not a very good place. If, however, these are eggs, I will dig them up and put them in a safe place.
Not too smart, huh? So, but she's found a place that it was muddy, and she started to lay her eggs. Now we also have, so that was the western pond turtle. We also have another one called the red-eared slider turtle, and it has a little red up on the top. This one is not native. A lot of people who bought turtles long ago, they dropped them here. So we have a bunch of them. Now we also have a bluebelly lizard. These are common in the Bay Area. Now, why are they called a bluebelly?
This is a bluebelly lizard, very common here in Fremont. Why is it called a bluebelly? It has a blue belly.
So they're easy to tell when you turn them over. Otherwise, they look like we have some other lizards. They look common, but these guys are found all around this area. Oh, now, what is this? Snakes at Tule Ponds. Remember, a snake is a reptile.
All around Tule Ponds, you'll find holes like this. Now, those are too big for a gopher, but it's not too big for a gopher snake or a garden snake, which both inhabit this area.
Now, do we have big snakes or little snakes? We have big snakes. Let's take a look. This is called the Pacific gopher snake. Now notice, let's look at the pattern, because later on I'm going to show you a little video, and you're going to have to tell me whether it's a gopher snake or one of the other snakes that we have here. Now describe this. Notice the pattern. It's almost like got like rectangles on the pattern in the back. So that's a Pacific gopher snake. Now this one is called a garden snake. Now the gardener snake has more or less stripes. The gopher snake is usually longer, and the garden snake is not as long, but one's about 6 feet long and the other one's about 8 feet long. But notice the garden has the stripes, and what was the other one? The gopher snake has the rectangle. So let's see if you can identify the next one. It's slithering away. Look at that head. What is the pattern? Is it a gopher or a garden? Does it have the rectangles or the stripes? If you said gopher, you are correct, because it has the rectangles. The garden snake, remember, has long. These are more common than the other ones. Okay, now we have observed many animals in this presentation, and we have an activity for you guys to make a scene from Tule Ponds. So your teacher or you could download these worksheets from our website, and you can color the different animals. See if you can remember their color, what form it is, like the butterfly, if you have the butterfly and not the caterpillar, or you have the caterpillar, and try to color it directly. Like a butterfly is symmetrical, so one side looks like the other side. Remember the ducks, if you wanted to use a if you wanted to use the mallard duck, you would make, and you wanted a boy, you would make it green or blue on the top. If you wanted a Canada goose, you would make it the black like this. If you wanted gimpy, you would make it the gray color. So there's all these different things that you could make. Now remember, you have tules, you have grass, you have flowers. This is a scene from Tule Ponds. Now remember, Tule Ponds is just a little treasure in the Bay Area that is home to many animals. Now, we are not open to the public. We only usually let school children come in here on field trips. We will, as soon as this COVID-19 calms down more, we will allow people to walk on it so that you at least can walk the different paths. We have about a mile of paths, and it's right off the Fremont BART station. So this is, and what I'm going to do just to end up here.
Make a scene of what you saw today. Did you see butterflies? Did you see trees? Did you see ducks? Did you see dragonflies or cattails or frogs? Turtles. Habitat includes all of these animals, so make a scene of what you just learned.